I'm going to talk about my favourite glam rock songs and the albums they come off. Now the awkward thing is defining what glam rock is, because at that time in the early 70s everybody was a bit glam. All the bands were wearing satin jackets and that kind of thing. And possibly the band that first showed signs of androgyny was the Rolling Stones. They'd been doing it in the late 60s, but they're never given credit for it, and they probably didn't. It's not a trend they probably wanted to be associated with. And likewise the Faces, I think at the time Rod Stewart would have been regarded as glam. And there was the out and out pop acts like Suzi Quatro and Mud and Show Waddy Waddy, who were obviously being pointed in the direction of the glam rock crowd. But my interest in it at the moment is because I am trying to start up a busking duo, and we're going to call ourselves the Glam Buskers, and we've even got a logo. So the first song I want to talk about is School's Out by Alice Cooper, which is on the album School's Out. Now, once again, is Alice Cooper glam? Well, he came out at the right time, and the band, it was sort of goth glam, wasn't it? Horror glam. There was something very glam about them, and they would appear on Top of the Pops with T.Rex and Slade and these kind of acts. So I would say School's Out by Alice Cooper is a glam single. It's not my favourite glam single. That is probably Hello Hooray, which might be sort of after the period. But that's my number 10. My number 9 is even more contentious. It's Queen. Killer Queen. Now surely Killer Queen is a glam single. I mean, it's got all the ingredients. Freddie Mercury appeared on the scene looking like he was copying the Sweet, the glam acts. There was some confusion about Queen because their first couple of albums appeared to be like prog rock but also glam. They were just two things that, well, they were probably the only act who were sort of prog glam. I hope I'm numbering this right, but number 8 I've got Vicious by Lou Reed from the album Transformer. Now, I think that this was glam when it came out. It was the first track that was played on the radio from Transformer. I don't think anybody ever thought that they would play Walk on the Wild Side, not people who were paying attention to the lyrics. And of course, there's a couple of other songs that sort of got played a bit, like Perfect Day and Satellite of Love. But the first song that I heard on the radio from this album was Vicious. And seeing as I absolutely love the song Sweet Jane, I liked the song Vicious, obviously. And it really does have that glam feel. It was produced by Ronson and Bowie, and possibly the ultimate glam song. At number 7 I have Cockney Rebel, Tumbling Down, which is from the album The Psychomodo. And Cockney Rebel were another of these acts like Queen. They sort of seemed originally to just be jumping on the bandwagon, and their first single, Sebastian, at the time I wasn't a fan. I now think it's absolutely brilliant. But it wasn't until they brought out the Psychomodo and people realised that they were actually a pretty good band. And the Psychomodo, they went from being, a band trying to sell singles to a band that had a very credible album. And the song Tumbling Down was something of an anthem, with this big sing-along, hands in the air chorus of "Oh, look what they've done to the blues." My number 6 is I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day by Wizzard. Now, I think Merry Christmas Everybody by Slade is a great record, and it was really good fun at the time, but it has been overplayed. And this isn't played quite so much. Somehow, in my mind, it's played just about the right amount of times every Christmas. It's a very clever record, and it feels like Christmas. Slade probably feels a bit too raunchy for Christmas. There's something comforting about Merry Christmas. I wish it could be Christmas every day, with the kids singing and it's just, you know, the sleigh bells. He just studied the genre and got it right first time. I mean, I would say my favourite Wizzard song, I've got this compilation CD, is Ballpark Incident. Number 5, I have to have a Slade song, and they made some great singles, and I could have put any of those on. However, with the act I'm working on at the moment, I think Born to be Wild from Slade Alive is the song I'm going to mention. It's a killer version of Born to be Wild. I remember hearing it on John Peel when we thought Slade were just a teeny pop band, and they did a John Peel session. It had Born to be Wild, and it also had their excellent version of Darling Be Home Soon, the John Sebastian song. They were the glam teeny band of the time, having these big hit singles and dressing ludicrously. But they had been a serious hard rock band, and they went on after the singles dried up. They became a serious hard rock band again. They headlined the Reading Festival and regained a lot of their credibility. Not that glam is necessarily something to be ashamed of. The next one is number 4. I've got Virginia Plain by Roxy Music. Now, I'm showing you the CD because this wasn't actually on the album, but it is on the CD. And Roxy Music were a bit of a shock. They had everything. They were sort of futuristic and retro at the same time. And part of their musical sound was just noise. But the noise just worked perfectly. Brian Eno, and now we see Eno and he looks quite sensible, but he was the most outrageous of all of them, and he would be just twiddling knobs and making bleeping noises. And they had this whole sort of retro 1950s, that'll be the day look. They had these songs like Remake, Remodel, which sounded a bit like retro rock and roll that had been brought up to what was the early 70s. And there was just something special about them. And so that is my number 4. My number 3 is All the Young Dudes by Mott the Hoople. This is a David Bowie song, and I can remember hearing this for the first time on John Peel, and he said he was going to play a new song by Mott the Hoople, and I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't like Death May Be Your Santa Claus or Thunderbuck Ram. It was it wasn't quite so hard and rough as I'd expected from Mott the Hoople, but it very quickly grew on me. And of course it's got the line about T.Rex in it, so it was very much of the time. It's a very clever song, and it's on the album All the Young Dudes, which was produced by David Bowie. It's also got a version of Lou Reed's Sweet Jane on it. So everything seems to be connected when it comes to glam. Number 2 is Get It On by T.Rex. And this record sort of changed my life. It was like how I imagine it was for somebody hearing the Ramones for the first time. I can remember hearing the Damned and the Sex Pistols for the first time, and that was almost as exciting as hearing Get It On for the first time. But Get It On was number 1 in the charts for ages. They were always on top of the pops playing it, and it's so simple, but they captured that sort of feel of the 50s of Little Richard, and brought it up to the 70s, and they glammed it up, and it's very catchy. And also, because I had loved Hot Love that came out before it with that ridiculous repeating chorus, so I was a bit of a T.Rex fan when it came out. And then when I heard the album, for a couple of years I was a T.Rex fan. So that's Get It On from Electric Warrior. There are moments in rock and roll that those of us who were there at the time remember quite clearly. And I can remember David Bowie going on the Russell Harty show, and he played this song. Now, I had liked Ziggy Stardust, but as with a lot of this music, it did seem he was sort of like copying. There was a bit of Eddie Cochran here, and a bit of Chuck Berry there. But he played Drive-In Saturday, and it was totally unusual. It still is quite an odd song, and the lyrics it's a crash course for the ravers. That stuck in my head. It wasn't like I could see it on the telly and then watch it on YouTube or whatever. That was it. You saw it on the telly, and then you had to wait till it was released. And yet this stuck in my head. I remember going to school next day and discussing it. Who saw David Bowie last night? And he did look quite outrageous. I mean, he didn't have the flash on his face like he has on the cover of Aladdin Sane, but he had taken the whole glam thing to another level, and that has to be my number one. It probably isn't David Bowie's best song, might not be the best glam rock song, but it's the one that had the most impact on me. Oh, I've got a bee now. I've got a great big bee in the shed. Now, it's probably why I'm doing a list now of great glam songs, and why I'm putting an act together. Called the Glam Buskers.